Hello guys, welcome back to this channel. In this video, we are going to talk about authentication with client-side Blazor using Web API and ASP.NET Core Identity. Nowadays, when you create a web application or a website, security is very important. So, how do you protect your application from unauthorized access? How do you restrict? How do you provide registration? And how do you provide login credentials as well? Now, if I create application whereby you want user to log in, anytime the person logs in, do you want the person to be using username and password all the time? No. When using Visual Studio or when using .NET Framework, you can able to design an application whereby here you can provide a token, and this token is going to be put into the header. Anytime a request is being made, it goes in with the header, and that header contains the token. The token contains the details of your registration. So the server can now access the token and respond back to the user. It is possible in .NET Framework. So that's what you're going to do in this video. We're talking about authentication with client-side Blazor using Web API and ASP.NET Core Identity. I have made this already, so that is what you see on the screen. Now I can just log in and log out. It's very simple. So if you are planning to have a system or a protection mechanism against your application, a simple one of course, then you can use, or we can use this to do it. Let's see. So first of all, I have to register first, but let's say with the source code I want to refresh and see if I have any account registered here. Let me delete that first. So I'll delete this first, then I'll just go in there to register. So I'll click on register. Now you see I have home, I have fetch data, counter. Now you see these are the default apps or default buttons when you create a new Blazor WebAssembly application. Now I added these two buttons here, that's a register and login. If I click on register, it takes me to the registration page. Now if I click on login, the same thing applies to it. Okay, I have the button that can submit and log into the system. The same thing applies to this, to register. Now, once I haven't registered, let's right click and go to inspect, or click on the F12 to go to development tools. Now if I come to the development section, let's see, with the network, click on the network resources. Now let's refresh this application. So refresh it and it gets the whole items loaded. Now if I click on fetch data, let's see what happens here. So fetch data. Now you see I have the controller here as weather forecast. It is returning the status code of 4200. The verb type here, it is fetch, because that's the HTTP get. We have the initiator and we have the size and the etc. Now if I click on the controller here, because I have a header, preview, response, okay, and cookies. Now let's see, let's go through one after the other. Now there is general information on top. So the method is get, the status code is 200, we know this already, so we can now hide this. The next one is the response header, and you can see the content type is JSON. It is returning a JSON object from a server, which is a Kestrel server, a default a Blazor WebAssembly, or that is a Visual Studio server in it. And let's close that. We have the response server header already. Now when it comes to request header, now you see we have authority. Is that authority over here? Because I can see it well, and that is for, let's see, that is for the local host and the port. The method here, it is get. We have the path, that is the controller. The scheme is HTTPS, because that is secured once you can see from here, HTTPS. And now if you check the next one, we have cookie. So defaultly, if a user or if application doesn't have an authentication system, we have a cookie that is registered for every web browser that gets connected to the application or the website. Now this one has its own cookie, and that's the ASP.NET Identity.application, and that is the cookie over here. So it starts from this side and it ends up to this. Okay, so you see when we check here, we are not having any bearer token. That is a token that the user logs in and it generates for the user to keep it. Now let's try to log in and see what happens here. So what you can see, we are not having any token over there. So let's register account first. So I'm going to register with example at example.com. The password there, that's the password going to be admin at 123. I'm going to repeat the same thing over here, admin at 123. Now I'm going to click on submit. Now after now you see it's been submitted, and now if I click on account, you can see I have the same thing, that's the same cookie that it is returning in the header. Okay, there's no token over yet. Let's log in and you see that this is going to change. This, what you did here, the method is post as indicated, so you can read the header details here, but what you want to actually focus here, it is a cookie. So this cookie, that is when you haven't logged in. We have application cookie that gives us the access to the application and it stores in our application for us in the header. Now let's log in to admin at 123. As soon as I log in, watch what happens here. As soon as I log in here, now I am logged in. So let me close this. So you see we have hello, I have my email here, and I have logout. Okay, now if I log out, I have login and sign up. Now you see as soon as I log in, you can see I have this. Also, let's go again, inspect, and now let's click on fetch data. Now let's go to network. Now with this fetch data, click on this. Let's go to the header and read the information over here. So you can see we have authorization, and here we have bearer token. Now this bearer here, that is a token. It starts from the UI and ends at 4HI. Now this is a cookie there. So you can see we have a new token here. Now this new token here, that as soon as you register, it gets installed into the application's local storage. How do you find local storage? Now the last gate here start from the is EY and the last one is 4HI. Go to application and now go to local storage and open that and click on the local host storage. So you can see we have this start from the EY, and it ends at what? 41HI. So this token is being added to the header as soon as you log in. Anytime you want to communicate with the server, it gets to the server, it checks before it gets out the information that we need, and that is exactly what we want to do. So we need not to provide username and password all the time. This token that you see contains the username, password, and the row as well. So that's what we have over here as a claim. So how do you do this? That is what we're going to have a look in this video. So we're going to start afresh from scratch. So you can watch the whole video, and it's going to help you when you want to secure your application by adding the identity, that is the authorization, authentication mechanism in. Okay, so I'll just close this and I'll just log out. As you can see, as soon as I click on logout, let's click on inspect, and now let's go to application again. Now you can see local storage, I have nothing, no cookie installed over here. Now if I click on the fetch data, let's go to the network, and now let's click on that. Let's see the header. You can see the bearer token authorization, it is off, only cookie left. So this time the user is now logged out and it just has to log in again to get this access token. Okay, so now when the user logs in, there are some roles that you want to allow, some method that you want the user to apply or perform. There are some features that you want to add as soon as the user logs in, either as a user or as administrator. Maybe this video, aside from this video, the next video we're going to talk about that, adding claims or role base to the authentication method. By this time around, we're talking about JSON authentication, and the topic is what? authentication with Client-Side Blazor using Web API and ASP.NET Core Identity. And remember that this is in the Blazor WebAssembly project. So let's start going. Now the first thing that we need to do here is we have to create a new Blazor WebAssembly project. So let's close this. So I'll close this and click on File, open or launch Visual Studio 2022. Click on New, now Project. So this project we're going to choose Blazor WebAssembly app. We wait for the template to load, then we go in for Blazor WebAssembly. This is a Blazor server app. We want the assembly app, so click on that and we click on Next. If you actually want to know the difference between Blazor WebAssembly app and a Blazor server app, you can check the playlist of this channel. I have a video explaining what Blazor WebAssembly and the Blazor server app, what does each do. Very simple. So click on that and then Next. That's the Blazor WebAssembly. Now our project name is going to be demo, so let's make that JWT demo. So JWT demo. Now that's the location and the solution name. Click on Next. And as I record this video, the current .NET framework as I record this is 7.0, and that is exactly what we are going to be using. So we click on configure for HTTPS. We want application to be secured as well, and we have the co-host there. This gives us the access to the client web, the API controller for as a server, and a class library as a project, or as library, as a third project. So we have shared project as a class library. We have a server that's an API as the server, and we have the web assembly as the client. So click on create, and now let's wait while application is being created. So we wait for it. So it is ready now, and as you can see from here, we can close these tabs. Can close them. When you go to Solution Explorer, we have our project over here. So this is a default one, as I was talking about. You have the client project, we have a server, that's the API, and we have a class library as a shared project. Now you can go ahead and run this application and see the default that it has. So click on this to run that. Now we wait for it to run. So now you can see it is building it. After building, then it's going to run to see the default app. Okay, now I know we are starting from scratch, so I want everything to be open to you. You see the steps you can follow, so you won't get any errors in yours. So that's why we are starting from scratch. Okay, so let's wait. Now it has been built and it is loading. So this is the old one. You can just now clear or close this old one. So the current one that we have, the port is 70, that's 7250, because we have hello world. Now about nothing else again, no register, no login, because we haven't added that. This is a new project. Now fetch data, encounter, everything is here. Right click and go to the inspect element, or click on the F12 key, and when you go to the network tab, click on the fetch data controller, click on that. You see we have the cookie over here. There's no bearer token here, so this is the default one that we see. When you go to application, local storage, now we have no access token stored here. So that's the default one, because we just created this application and there's nothing in. So we are about to configure or put everything together to make it beautiful, as you saw in the displayed, or the one that I use for the explanation. Okay, so once you have this application created, what's the next thing to do? The next thing to do is we have to install some NuGet packages, and that is what you're going to use for this whole project. Okay, so what are these packages that we need to install? Let's see. So first of all, since you're going to connect a database, we need an SQL, we need Entity Framework Core, we need Entity Framework Core.Tools as well. Okay, and we need the Authentication.JWT, that's a JSON Web Token bearer, that's the authentication type. And we need ASP.NET Core identity. Since there's an identity that we are creating, we need Identity.UI as well. And we have to install the diagnostic.entity framework core. We have almost about 5 or 6 and package that we need to install to make this happen. So let's get going. So go to the project, and with this we are first going to work. You see, we have 3 sections in our application: client, server, and shared. The server here is a controller, and that is the API. So we are first going to work on the API first. We come to the shared, then we go back to the client. So all what you're doing now is based on the server. Take note. So right click on dependencies in the server project, and now let's go to manage NuGet packages. So these are going to install these packages onto the server. Okay, so click on the browse tab, and that is where you're going to make a search. So first we need authentication.JWT bearer, so you can type in JWT bearer, just that. Alright, so let's see. Now you can see we have Microsoft.ASP.NET Core Authentication.JWT bearer. This is what you want to install. By Microsoft, 307 million downloads. Wow, a lot. So let's click on install. The current stable version is 7.0.3. Click on install. Let's install to the server project. That is the API, web API. Accept the terms and conditions, and we wait for the installation to be done. When you are done, now you see it is done. When you click on the output, we have success. Okay, so finished. Now we have to install another one as well. That's Identity.UI. So identity. So Identity.UI. Now let's wait and see if we have any package as Identity.UI. So you can see Microsoft.ASP.NET Core Identity.UI. So click on this. Now install. Okay, so let's install this as well. 59.5 million downloads. Accept by Microsoft as well. Output, it is done. We have to install diagnostic.entity framework core. So let's install that, and that is the diagnostic.entity framework core. Now because I have downloaded them already, so I type the name here. That's why as soon as I start typing, I get a pop-up. So if you're not having, unless you type everything, so diagnostic.entity framework core, you're going to see the pop-up, and that is what you want to use. Diagnostic.entity framework core, 70 million downloads by Microsoft, 7.0.3 stable version. Click on install. Accept it. We don't have time to read everything here. Just accept that and go away. Now we need to install SQL Server. So I close this and type in SQL Server. So that is a database management software that enables us to create database. So that is it. Microsoft, not the extension. You want this one, Microsoft.entity framework core SQL Server. Click on install. 7.0.3 as a stable version, and when you go to the output, it is restoring packages. So you can see, let's accept that, and we are done. Now the last one that we need to install is tools. So type in tools. So with this tool, that is the Microsoft.entity framework core.tools, click on install, and let's install that. Accept it. So we wait for it to get installed, then we can proceed. Alright, so everything is okay. Now if you're not believing that you have all these packages installed, you can now do it manual check. How do you check it out? Solution Explorer. Now on your same server project dependencies, right click, or that's a click on this drop down. Now you can see expand that and go to expand the packages. Now you can see we have all these packages here: JWT, bearer, server, we have diagnostic, Identity.UI, framework, EFCore.SQL server, and we have the tools. So we get them, right? They are here, and we can now move on with our project. Okay. Now, once you're done, the next thing that we have to do here is to create or set up our connection string. How do you set our connection string? So let's do that. And in our connection string, we can set it up in the AppSettings.josn file. So click on the AppSettings. Now take note that we are working on the server project, so not the client server instead. So AppSettings.josn file. Now click on this, and we want to pass in here. So we want to pass in connection strings, and this connection string we have to give it a name as what? So that's the default connection. Now this default connection, our server is equal to, that's a local. Then you can close this. Database name is equal to JWT demo. Okay, then let's say trusted connection. Let's set this to true, and trust server certificate. Let's also set this to true. Now it means we are going to create a database known as JWT demo. Currently we are not having that database yet. Now when you create a database, you want to trust the connection, you want to also trust the certificate. So anytime that you want to make access to the database, you want to have access to the database, it becomes possible for us. No hindrance. Okay, let's save this. Now take note, make sure you bring this comma here. Let's save that. So that's exactly what we are doing here. Now in the app settings, I also have this script. Now you see we can also pass in server local db. You can pass in /mysql local db. Okay, database name. Or here we can also use initial catalog, and this is a trusted connection, multiple active results set to true, and we can also use a trust server certificate to true. Okay, now the next thing, that once you have a database connection set already, the next thing to do here is we have to create our application DB context. Now this application DB context is what we're going to use to generate a table, our identity table for us in application database, or that the SQL database. So let's do that. We first have to create a folder here and name it as data. You want to organize our work. Okay, so let's set it here as a new folder. The name is going to be data, and now let's create a class in. Now with this class, the name that we're going to set this class to is application DB context. So I just have to copy this, and let's go to application, right click, and let's add a class to it. So add, then we go for class. The name is application DB context. DB is database context, so we have that, and this is what we have to do. I just have to grab this, and let me just grab this and paste it over there. Okay, so now, whoa, there's not JWT login online. There's going to be a JWT. This JWT demo. Okay, so here control plus period, and now let's see what happens. Control plus period. Now we have a loading suggestions. We wait so we can actually add what they need to use. Now you can see we have install package Microsoft .identity core framework. So we have to install this as well, and let's see if we can actually install this. Let's have, all right, so we wait whilst we get that installed. Now we see it has finished the installation, and let's see if this error is going to be cleared off. Yeah, it is gone. So it means we have to install that package as well, and that's the name of the package, dependencies. And let's expand that. Let's see the name. That is the Identity Framework Core. We have it over here. So we have a suite.NET Core component, WebAssembly.server. We have diagnostic, and we have what? Microsoft.entity. That's a core.identity.entity framework core. So that's what we just installed. Okay. So that is where Identity DB contest is coming from. So we have that installed as well. So as you can see from here, we create a constructor out of this. We pass in this DB contest option. Then that's the name of the class that we created, application DB contest. Then options. Then going to inherit from this base option. So we are done with this. Now we need not to provide any table here. This has everything in it, and as soon as you run migration, it's going to create a database table for us. The database name, we specify the database name as JWT demo. So the tables for identity of authorization is going to come from this identity DB contest. Take note. All right. Now we have this done. The next thing that we can actually do here is we can now go to our program.cs file and register connections over there. So how do you do it? Let's save all these Solution Explorer. Now in our server project, we have to locate program.cs file. So click on that, and we have to set up these over here. Okay, so in here, that is what we are going to do. We have builder.services .App.razor pages. So we can add these services by calling the builder.services. Then we pass in the service that you want to add. So what are the services that you want to add? You can just grab them from here. I have program.cs file. Now let's add these services first. Now the first one that we have to add here, you have to add a database connection service. And that is it. As I'm going to copy this, and I'll just have to paste it here. So this is builder.services.rdb contest. So that's a class that we created, application DB contest. You pass an option, then you're going to use the SQL server that we just installed as a NuGet package. Then we are getting a connection string name. So that's the default connection. If you locate to app settings, that is the name over here, default connection. So you can just copy these, and I'll go in there and I'll paste it again to see if you are right. Okay, so this is what we have to add first. Now the next thing that we have to add is we have to add our default identity. Okay, so a default identity, this is what we have to add here. I'm going to copy this and let's go in there and paste it over there. So down here we have to, let me give a space so it won't just, okay. So we are adding, these are also services that we are adding, and that's the default identity and this identity user. Remember, this identity user is coming from that identity DB that we just added. Remember that we added this under the application DB contest. That's identity DB contest. Okay, so we can grab identity user in that. So that's identity user that we are adding over here, and we add this .framework store, and we pass in this context class. Remember, this context class contains the connections, and that is what is going to create a database for us. Okay, and this context class also inheriting from application, that's identity DB contest. Take note. So we have that. Okay, so we have this set, and the next thing that we can actually do is also quite simple. Let's see. So we can have to set up the identity database. So by creating database, so now we have these two services being registered, connection and identity user. Let's perform migration to create a database table. So go to views, and I can see we have solution or SQL Server Object Explorer. I have mine over here. Click on that and click on this refresh button over there. So if I expand my database, okay, my server database, you can see I'm not having JWT demo. I have JWT DB, but I'm not having the demo. Take note that the app settings we specify JWT demo. We're not having any database name as demo. After performing migration, we're going to see that table and the various tables, database, and the various tables that's going to be created by this IdentityDB contest. So let's see. Let's click on Tools, and now click on NuGet Package Manager, and then click on Package Manager Console or Package Manage Console. Now in here, you can see server is being selected. That is what we want. You can click on this drop down to choose the client, the shared. But this time around, we need the server. So we can clear this screen off. So CLS, you can clear this off. Okay. So this is what you're going to do. So add-migration. And the name that you're going to name is initial, because that's the starting one. You can change the name to anyone that you want, even your name. You can put it over there. And this is going to generate a folder and migration files in that folder. Where do you want to keep this folder and all these files? You want to keep them in the data folder. Remember that we created a folder here known as data, and that is what everything concerning connection is supposed to be. So that's the data. So you want it to be here, so we can specify that as -o. So that's an output. And let's pass in this data folder /. Then the name is what? Migrations. So we specify the folder name that you want to get. So O, and that's the data /migrations. Click on the enter key, and let's see what's going to happen. So we're going to build the application first. After building, it's going to just run the query. That is the migration. And when it is done, we are going to update the database to see the table, the database name, and the table. So you can see it is done. Now if you check the migration file, we have the name as ASP.NET rows, ASP.NET user. So you can see all these table names: create table, table name. The next one, let's see, create table, table name, create table, table name, create table. You can see all these tables. Where are they coming from? They are coming from the IdentityDB contest. Okay, so that is what that's where they are coming from, because we didn't specify any database here or table name here. We just specified the database name as JWT demo, but we didn't specify any table. But since we are inheriting from this IdentityDB contest, we can now get the various tables in our migration file. Okay, so currently when you go to server object, when you refresh this, we are not going to see the database yet because it is not there unless we update the database to see the JWT demo. Now let's update that. So the same thing, and let's see, to update -database. Click on the enter key, and let's see what happens. So we see it building started, and we're going to create that. When you click on Solution Explorer, the data folder, you can see we have another folder name as migrations. When you open it, that's where we have everything in. Okay, so we have it here. Okay, so you can see it is done. Now it is writing some queries for us, and this is done by the Entity Framework core. All these queries have been written and run by the Entity Framework core. That's very good. So we need not to type everything else ourselves. So now once you're done, let's go back again, refresh, open the server database. Let's see JWT demo. We have it over here. So click on this, expand. Now expand tables, and we see we have all these tables. But the one that we are interested most is the ASP.NET user. That is what you are working on today. So click on view data. Now let's see what happens here. So we see we have ID, username, normalized username, email, and etc. Normalized email, a lot. Okay, we're not going to fill all this. What you're going to fill here is a password hash, security stamp, email, username, normalized name, and ID. These are the things that we need for email confirmation. You can actually add that in as far as you start build the project. If you want to confirm my email and etc. Also, we want to check if two-factor authentication enabled and all these types of that you want. You can actually do more with the help of this table, and that is good out of the IdentityDB contest. Okay, this table name provided by default. As soon as you heard from the IdentityDB contest, you get everything here rightfully, as you can see. Okay, so we have a database created. We have a table names as well. Now our table is empty. So what is the right thing? What is the next thing to do? So we can actually now enable authentication. And now with the enabling authentication, we can also register what the services. So the next step is to enable authentication in the API. And this, how do you enable or how do you register the service? So let's see. We go back to our program.cs file. Now in here, down here, okay, let's go to application now. This is what you want to do. So you can now grab this and paste it here. Okay, so this is what we just added. Builder.services. This is also registering, so we're registering service. Builder.services.add authentication. So we are adding authentication, and we are adding JwtBearer default authentication scheme. Remember that there is a mechanism that we're going to use, or the authentication type. Now with the add JwtBearer, we pass in these options. So let's see what we can actually do here. So we add the JwtBearer and we pass an option. So options.token validation parameters, we create new out of it. We set this at the parameters. So validate issuer true, the audience is true. Now this issuer, it is the one that is our server. That is because this is going to work between the server and the client. Remember that in our solution express we have server and a client. So validate issuer, who is issuing the code, or who is issuing the authorization or the authentication, that is the server. So we want to validate the issuer. And now validate audience. The audience is the client, anyone who is coming in. Then validate lifetime. So if you want, maybe in our token we can decide to set it expiration date. Yes, we want to validate it because maybe if we don't want to accept expired token, so you have to validate the time being added to the token as well. And now validate issuer signing key true. And where do we get this issuer and the audience? We get them from this builder.configuration. Then we pass this JWT issuer. So with this, we haven't set them yet. We're about to set them. And now issuer signing key. So we get it from JWT security key. So all these, as soon as you hear builder.configuration, it means you can grab them from the AppSettings.josn here. Now, do we have any key here? Do you have any JWT issuer, audience, and security key? No, we don't. So let's go in there and set them up. Let's get them. So the next thing that we have to do here is we have to provide those keys. And AppSettings.josn, these are the keys that you want to add. You grab this one. Let's go in there, and now here we can paste this. So make sure the last one has comma. Now this JWT security key. Now this any random key that you want to pass in. But note they should be equal to or more than 16 characters. Now this is more than 16. If you think I'm lying, just count yourself and say. So it must be more than 16 or equal to 15, but not less than. No, you're not going to work on that. So use more than 16 characters here. And there is the issuer is a local host, and the audience is a local host. Now JWT expiry in days. How many days do I want to add? 1 day. So 24 hours. Our token is supposed to be expired, meaning you can't use a token in the header to access content in the application. You have to register again, you have to log in again with your credentials, so it can also generate another token for you. Okay, let's save that. Now we are done with our token or our keys. The next thing that we have to do here is we have to enable authentication by adding the middleware pipeline. So what are the middleware pipeline? If you go to program.cs file, middleware are what you can see as app.use, all these are middleware pipelines. So we are going to configure that, and what I'm going to do, we have to use app.use authentication, then we can use the authorization as well. So our program.cs file. Now take note that authentication comes first before authorization. So I'll pass over here. Take note, authentication first, before authorization. If not, it's going to authorize the user before authenticating, and that's very bad, because you can't give the person access. Then you decide to check, do you qualify to have this access? It doesn't make sense, right? So you have to check first, do you qualify to have this access? Yes. Then what access can I give it to you? That's the authorization. Give the access to the person, and off you're done. Very simple and clear. Let's save this. So once we've added our middleware pipeline, then we can now go ahead and create our controller. Now this controller is what we're going to use to register. That's the account controller. Okay, so account controller. Now with this account controller, let's go in there to our server. Now in our controllers, we're going to add new controller, and that's going to be an account. So let's see. So we are done with the app settings. We can now close that off. We are done with the AppDB contest, and we can also want to close that off as well. Okay, so now with our account controller, we can grab this account controller, then you can go to application, right click on the controllers folder, and you have to add new controller, and the name is going to be an account. So we have to go in for API controller as empty, add, then here let's put account controller, click on add. Now we have this controller added. Okay, what are the things, what are the methods that we need to use in there? We can get all these methods here. So first of all, let's create a constructor, and I'm passing the identity user as user manager. So in here, to create constructor, click on this control plus period or dot. You can now generate constructor over here. But since I have mine, I'm going to paste it over here direct. So we have account controller, we create a constructor, we pass in user manager as an identity user, then we give an object name, or that's the instance as user manager. We initiate this inside the constructor, so now it is ready to be used anywhere, anytime. Next thing to do, if the user want to create an account, which method can the user pass on to create an account? That is this method, post. So this, the method name is what? Post. Okay, so this is post, and now it is coming in from register model. Okay, so this is what the user is going to pass on to create an account. The method name is post from the body, and here it's coming in with this model, register model, and we create object out of it. Now with this model, it's going to come in as soon as it gets here. We create a new user out of the identity user. We set the username from this identity user to the model that is coming in is email. We set the identity email to the model that is coming in email, the person coming in email. Okay, so let's assume this model represents the entity, the human being registering our site. That human being is going to provide two methods or two values or keys. The first one is an email and maybe a password, okay, name. But in identity user, you want to create a variable for this, and this identity user has username and email, so we assign the person's email as username, so we can display hello, then your email over there as a username, then your email is going to set as an email over here. When we are done, we create a variable as what? Result. Then we're going to create a user manager. We pass in this new user that is coming in because you have your email and a username, and we add your password as well. So this model is also coming in with a password to be create. Now when we are done, account or the user is now created. Now we check if it is not succeeded, we can return errors here. So we create an object out of errors, then we set this error to what is coming in. We return a register result. This is also a model that you're going to create. Now this result contains two attributes: successful as a boolean, which is false. That is, if the results couldn't succeed because there was an error, we return false, that is successful equal to false. And you can now pass in this error here. Okay, so you can pass in what is the problem, you can pass the way to display to the user. But in case everything works, you're going to return new register result, success is equal to true. Okay, and here we can still pass in message as maybe user registered. You can pass in at the error side. So this error you can pass in, because you know this register result comes in with errors and this boolean, two methods or two properties here. So you can set up this error. But the reason why I am skipping this is, as soon as the user finishes creating the account and it works successfully, I want to navigate the user to the login. So I'm not going to display any message to the user. Maybe you can use Toast, or you can use any other sweet alert to display that. Okay, but here I'm not going to use that sweet alert. I'm not going to use any JavaScript as well. So we're going to redirect the person to the user. So that's why we are not using this error here. The success is true, and maybe we can pass error as now. Let's clear that off. So we have this. Now once you have a controller that's going to register the user, what is the other thing to do next? So we can go ahead and create a register model. So this register model is going to carry in with email and password, and also going to come in with confirm password, because you know email and password, right? Then we need confirm password. So we can copy this register model. Let's go to our Solution Explorer. Now this is going to come in the shared project. So right click on the shared project and click on add class. Let's paste this as register model.cs. And now this register model, I have it over here. That's what I'm going to use. Register model. Where is that? Let's see, we have login results, and let's do have register model in here. Alright, so register model, and this is what you want to pass in. So I'm going to copy this method, or since I have this already, I can just grab only the code. So let's copy this, let's paste this here. Now this internal, we don't want that. We want to access this outside this scope, so we set it, or we change it to public. It is open to the public, so everyone can have access to this. Why did we add this model in the shared project? Shared project means anything that is passed here can be shared to the server and the client. Now this register model, the clients are going to use that, so that's why we pass it over here. But if it's limited to the server, we could have added it to the server. But since this, the server also going to use, what the clients are going to use, we can pass it to the shared. That's what we did. Okay, now we can specify, or we can simplify the, let's copy this, or let's cut this, let's paste it here, let's bring comma. Okay, so we can join them together, and even with this we can still join this, as we can pass it in one line. So we don't want to get ourselves confused. So display name, the first one is required, then is email. Display name is what? Email. So let's close this. Now it's a simple one, we are done, isn't it? Now you can still copy this as required, and this is a string length, you can paste this here. Okay, then there's a display name, you can cut this. You want to display all in one property. Okay, then there's a display type as password, and now the name is going to be, okay, so we have one over there, so we can set it in this way. Let's clear this. Okay, so this also required, user can skip this. Now you have a display name as password, and at the type here it is password. So anytime that user passing the password, it's going to mask it into star star star. Okay, you see that in? Yeah. And this is the error message. So the number that you must maximum character, And this here, it is a string, and this is a placeholder, so it means the number that you're going to type first must be at least 2, and the maximum is supposed to be what? 1. So we have 0 here, so then the number must be at least, okay, so watch here, you can see we have the minimum here. Minimum is what? 6. So the what the user type, that is 0, must be at least minimum 2, and the maximum is 1. This is 100. So what the user going to pass is the first one. It's going to capture that. Minimum is 6, that's the 2 here. 1 is the maximum of specified here, and this against the password. Now confirm password, data type also is the same as what? Password. And now this is a display name as confirm password, so we can cut this and we can paste this here. So, and this also compare, so we are comparing, because you know, compare password or confirm password, these two passwords must match, isn't it? So you can now take this off, and you can bring this to the next line. So yeah, so we have this and everything is working now. Okay, so this is a model. Now let's go back to account controller, and now control plus period, let's use shared project. And now it is that we've solved that issue. Now you see this model, it is coming in. If you right click here, you can go to pick definition. Now you can see that this is coming in with what? Email password. Now if you go to the application here, you can see we have email and password, so we have this. Now the next one is the registration result. So that is after being registered. When we have error or not, what is the output? So we have to pass it right here. So we have to create this also model. So copy this. Let's go to our Solution Explorer. Now shared project. Let's add another one as class. Then results, registration or register result. And now in here we can register result. Do we have it? Yeah, I think it's over here. So we need only this to add properties. Now the first one here is boolean, so this is going to state if it is success, that is true or false. And the next one is enumerable of string or list of strings, and that's termed as an error. We save this, and so when you have any error, we can pass into the error side, and if it is not successful, that is boolean, so it could be true, it could be false. False means it is not successful. True means everything is intact. So we can also control plus period, you can also add that as well. So we have this, we are done. Okay, now the next thing is, can we test this controller? Yes, we can. So before we do that, we have to, let's install a project, that's it, a package known as the Swashbuckle. Now Swashbuckle is going to help us to navigate or use the Swagger UI, and it's an interface made for an API. Okay, so let's install that first. So right click on Solution Explorer. Now on our server project, let's expand the dependencies. Right click, manage NuGet packages, and now browse tab, we need Swashbuckle. So Swashbuckle, and that's the Swashbuckle.ASP.NET Core. Let's insert the kernel version is 6.5.0. Accept it, we don't have time to read, and output, it is done. So we see it is finished. And what can we do? Let's configure that. So we're going to configure that. We're going to add the services and also configure the middleware pipeline. So program.cs file, and now in here we're going to use on top here. So we have to specify builder.services.add, and that's going to be Swagger Gen. Is it generator? Yeah. Okay, so that's adding the services. Now let's configure the pipeline. That's the middleware. So in here, app.use Swagger, and and also the next one is app.use Swagger UI. So Swagger UI. So that's the user interface. Now let's save this. So once you are done with this, now you see we have a controller set already. So we can now build application. So click on this, or let's see, this application being built. Okay, so you can see it is building here for us. But to speed things up, let's click on this. Let's navigate to our page here. Now this is going to return, or it's going to refresh itself, and you're going to see the same thing as well. Okay, because we haven't touched the client side, we are actually working on the controller, that is the API. So you can see nothing happens here, the same thing. But if you copy this, let's copy this, open the next interface, paste this, and now add Swagger. So Swagger, and I click on enter. Now you can see it is going to locate this Swagger UI. That's what we installed. But as you can see from here, you can see we have API account, so we can register an account here. So let's click on. Before we do that, let's let's open this SQL. Do you have, yeah, so that's an ASP.NET user from the database table. When you refresh, you can see we have nothing, no information here, right? Let's see. So try this out. Now let's use user at example.com. Now the password here is, let's see, admin at 123. And now let's make mistake here and see. So admin at 1234. Now let's click on execute and see what's going to happen. Now you see the password and the confirmed password do not match. That's exactly what we stated in the register model. That's data type. Now let's see again. If we pass in, if we decide not to use, okay, so let's say if we decided to take off this 123, so admin at, it must be 6, but this is what this is. Yeah, this is 6, isn't it? So 3, that is it. Let's take off the admin. Let's see what happens. So execute it. Now let's see. So the password must be at least 6, and the maximum is 100. Okay, so it has to be 6. So we can now add them. 1, 2, 3. All right, so 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. And now let's click on execute. Let's see the response that you're going to have. So do you have any response? The password might be at least 6. That as you can see from here, admin at 123, admin at 123. Good. So you can see the response here is what is successful. So errors is null. Now let's go to our controller. Now in our let's go to our Solution Explorer. Now in the database table, that's the ASP.NET Core users. If you don't know how to get it, click on SQL Server Object Explorer, expand this, right click and click on View Data. So let's refresh this, and now we have to see the data that we just registered. Wow, so that is over here. Actually, we have an ID, user ID, we have the username that we specified, and that's a normalized username. So this is the username. We have the email, normalized email. Now the normalized one is set them into upper cases. So as you can see from here, you have a security stamp, that is the stamp here, and this is the password. So password hash you have over here. Now you can see we have email confirm false. So if you want to add a mechanism, you can do that, and you can set this email confirm to true. Okay, and you have a lot over here: logged in, logged out, enabled, logged out, and phone number, and etc. Okay, so let's focus on this. So you can see our API is now working. That's the registration. Now the next thing is to talk about is the login. So we have to create the login. So after registering to application, we can now log in. So once we log in, then we create the token, okay, and set it up to the local storage or the person's or the client's browser. So let's go in there to our Solution Explorer, and now the name that you want to use here, it is called login controller. So in here, I have that login controller here already. So I'm going to copy this login controller, and in here to the controllers folder, that the server. Right click on this, and I add new controller. So in order not to confuse you, that is what I am creating a controller for each method. Okay, if not, I would have added the login and the eraser and the same controller. That is a one controller, but I'm just splitting them. You can do it. You can do it. So be flexible in your code or in your design. In your programming, you can do it anyhow you want it to be. So make sure that it is in order. And for that, whoa, so you need to, that is not cancel. We are adding controller, so that's an API. Yeah, empty one, add. Now I'm going to paste that as a login controller. Click on add, and we have that. And you know, in this too, we have to generate constructor. So control period. So click on generate constructor over here. So if you have the constructor generated, but I'm going to take this off because I have one in there already. So and we have to inject these services. So we have to inject I configuration. Now this configuration, it is coming in from the AppSettings.josn. Remember that AppSettings.josn file, that is where we can get the I configuration from this. So you can have access to the data here by having the I configuration. And now we need to use identity user. Remember that this identity user is a sign-in manager here. Remember that here in the registration, that's the account controller, we created an object out of this, that's identity user. So this user manager has everything that we want, because as soon as the user registered, it gets into that. So we can grab data from this user manager. And this user manager is inheriting, it is coming in from, there is a user manager from identity user. So we need the same thing, to inject the same thing into the login controller, so we can have access to the stored details or the stored data. I believe this is clear. Yeah, it is clear. So that's what we know as, we call it as a sign-in manager, and it is from the identity user. Okay, so we initiate them over here, and this we can just pass this on one line. Okay, yeah, we can do like this, and now initiate them. So once you are done, we have to now check. So the first one here, that is a post. So when the user passes on his data, we check the login. This the user that is coming in, so this is going to hold the user's data. Now this login, we check. So we stored the data from here. Now check. So sign in manager.password sign in async. So we check that the password coming in is equal to one you have there corresponding to this email. Now if it is not, we're going to return a bad request. Okay, then we need to create a model. That's the login result as we did for the username. Now as we did for the registration. Now this user result is coming in with success code and an error as well. So maybe one thing that we can actually do here to be generic case, instead of defining the class as register request, we can just make it as maybe response. So that response is going to hold this status, that and the boolean, and also this error message. So we can pass in both the login and the registration. But don't worry, today's video, it is not to confuse you, not to make things complex, but that's simple. So let's create separate models for that. So this also model is going to handle success and the error. That is when it is not. If it is not, then we're going to return claims. That's the empty claim, because the user data doesn't sync with what we have there. So we don't know the user. We don't have the account of that person. If not, so as you can see from here, we're going to return if it is succeeded. This is not succeeded, that's we're going to return empty one. But if it's succeeded, that's what we have to do. So if it's succeeded, then we're going to store the claims from that. So claim type.name, then the email. So this claim type, the name that you want is the person's email. Remember that under the account, we set the name as what is email. So as soon as you call the name, it means you're calling the person's email. And that's what we're able to display. Hello, then the email, instead of the name, the actual name of the person. Hello, then passing the email. So in our case, the email presents the name. I believe this is clear. Okay, so aside from that, we store a key over here. We get the security key. Remember, this is coming in from the AppSettings.josn JWT security key, and we also create a variable as a credentials. Then the key that you have here, we convert it into, that's an HMAC SHA as 256. So we convert it over here as a credential. Then we set the expiry. So the expiry here, we are adding this. We can actually add seconds. Take note. So let's count this. Now you can see that add. You can add seconds because we have a lot: milliseconds, minute, month, and year. Okay, but in this case, we're adding just a day. So we want 1 day. So JWT expiry in dates or in days. When you go to our app settings, we specify here as 1. So it means within 24 hours, the token must expire. We generate a token out of this. Once you have all these properties or all these keys, we can now put them together and generate our token. So we generate a token by using the issuer, the audience, then the claim that we have over here, the expiry date, and the credential. So we store that after generating a token, we store it onto this token. Once we are done, we're going to return OK. So successful is going to be true because it is now created. Token is now created. And now we write to this. So write token. Inside this method, we have a variable known as token. So we store the current token that we have created onto that variable. Then return that login result. Okay, so once we have that, the next thing that we can actually do here is we need to create that login model. So let's see. Login model. Do I have it here? Login and the model over here. Let's see. Okay, so I think it's around this area, login model. So this is what we need: only email, password, and remember me. This remember me is that we don't actually need this for now, so you can take off this. Okay, we need email and password. So let's copy this login model, and now let's create in the shared project. So right click and now add a class, and now this class is going to be login model.cs. So let's go in there and now grab what we have here. Let's set this to public. Then we can now paste this. So this is required. It means user can pass in empty. You must pass in value here. Okay. And now even with the email, we can still add an email address to specify. So let's do it again. So email address, and even with a password, when coming in, we can specify the data type. So let's go to the register model, and now we can specify this data type over there as password. So let's copy this in here. And login model, you can paste this here. So let's clear this off. Okay, so now we are done with this. Now let's save this. Login controller, click on control plus period. Let's use system.shared project, and this login result. So let's also create a login result, and in here login result, copy this. Now in shared project, right click, and now let's add the class, and the name is going to be login result. This login result, we need these 3 properties. Now here, public, as you know, let's paste this in. Now this, so you're going to determine the state of the process. Is this success? Is this not successful? So true or false, we have that. There's an error. In case we have any error, we can pass in, or in case we have any message, we can pass into the error. This token is going to handle the token generated when the person logs in. Simple. Save that. Controller login, that's the login controller. We have that also. So we have solved that issue right here. And let's see. So let's save that and let's also test it and see what we have in application, if the login is actually going to work. So here, let's wait while it gets refreshed. Now remember that we have the account here, and the name that we stored was, we have the email already. Let's refresh this in here. So let's wait while it gets refreshed. So we can try and log in and see if you're going to have the token, generated, meaning our API is now working. Then we move on to the client session to have access to create service, so it can render to the API. So log in, try this out. Now we have the email here already, and remember that the password is what? Admin at 123. Execute. That's what we have. Alright, so everything is intact now. So you can see from here, successful equal to true, error is null. Now check it, that's the token. So this is the token that we are getting. So EYJHBGC, that's a lot. SK, that's the last one. So this is the token. Okay, so this token is going to be added to the header, so it can be stored onto the client's header request. As soon as a request is being made, it comes in with this token. Then we check, does it correspond with the user credential? If yes, we allow the person to access any data that the person is allowed or authorized to access. That is very clear and simple. So once you have the API done, so this means that our server project, we are done. We are now moving on to the client one. Okay, so because we have a registration and login system working perfectly, so let's go to our client component. So we can now close our server. So let's close our server and close our shell and open our client. Now the very first thing that we need to do here is we have to set our App.razor component, because here it's going to, the authentication state is going to depend on this to render to check, is it going to be allowed or do you have any authentication? So the very first place is starting from this, because that's where the routing and everything is coming in from. So the very first thing is we have to tackle this. How do you do it? Now I have right over here, we have to make a change in that and we move forward. So that's going to be the App.razor. So this App.razor, we can now grab what we have here. Let's go in there, and now instead of this, we can now comment this. Then let's paste this here. Okay, so let's see what we have now. So control plus period. Now let's see. So we see we have route, and this cascading. Control plus period. Okay, so generate component from tag. So we have the close and the opening. All right. So this, let's see. So not found, we have that, and we pass in the cascading open and close as a layout. All right, so let's save this. Now let's refresh the application and see what we're going to have now. So this is refreshing, and let's wait for this to get refreshed and see what we have. All right, so you can see from here everything is off because we have set the cascading authentication state. So it means you must be authenticated before you can view this. But are you authenticated now? No. So you have blank. Right click and go to inspect elements. Now when you go to console, nothing here. Okay. Now network. Refresh this application. Now as you can see from here, it is working perfectly. But you can see that from here we are locked. You have to be authenticated or authorized before you can have access to this site. And that is what this guy, cascading authentication state, is doing. This. Okay. So once you have this set, the next thing that we can actually talk about here we can move ahead. We can configure or create a custom authentication state provider. You know, we have a default authentication state provider, so we're going to create our own, a customized one. We're going to inherit from that authentication state provider, because this authentication state provider contains a method that we're going to use them in a customized one, so it is better we inherit from that. So let's get going. And now with this, we are going to create a folder in this. We don't want to create a service. Okay, let's create a folder in a client, that's a client project, and we name it as helpers. So let's make it as helpers. It's a helper, we got just one, so helper, that's a helper here. Now in this helper, let's create one, and let's name it as API authentication state provider. So let's copy this, and in here right click this and add new class. So it's an API authentication state provider, and that's a class. Click on add. So we have this class, and now this class, what it's going to do here is, first of all, it's going to inherit from this authentication state provider. So I'm going to copy this. Okay, and now aside from that, we have to initialize some method over there. So let's create a constructor and initialize a method. So this is a constructor that we are creating, authentication state provider. So we can now get going and close this off because it's duplicated. Alright, so as you can see from here, we are now using the local storage service. But do you actually have any local storage service here? No, we don't. So this means that we have to install this local storage service. So let's install that. So we can click on this Ctrl+, and let's install. Do you have no? Okay, so let's see, we have Blazored. Let's go to Solution Explorer. Now in our client project dependencies, right click and go to manage NuGet packages. Now under browse tab, you need to install Blazored local storage. So that's it. Whoa, what have I had? What is it? Alright, so Blazored local storage, and this is what you want to use by Crescenti. So click on this and now install. Alright, so we are done. Output, you can see it is finished. So let's go to authentication state provider, Ctrl+. Now let's inject using Blazored local storage. So we have it set here, and now we initialize them over here with the HTTP client as well. So you can see we have the constructor, we inject them, then we initialize them here. Okay, now the next thing that we can do here is we have to have a method that's going to get us an authentication state service. So let's see. Now if we click on to Ctrl+, let's see what we have. So it is saying we should install this over here as well. Okay, so let's try to install this. So Ctrl+, now install component.authorization. Let's install that. So we wait. Alright, so it is done. Is it? Let's wait for a while and see. Whoa, it means we have problem over here. Could not found. So alright, so you see it is done now. Okay, so let's see. When you right click on this authentication state provider and then go to definition, you can see we have a method in there that is known as get authentication state provider, and you can see that is a get authentication state async. So we are going to override this method and specify what we want using this authentication state. So in here, the next line, let's paste what we have in. So we create an authentication state. That's the method that we just saw over there. Now we are going to get a token set up from this. Okay, so we are getting local storage. Now you can see, as soon as you log in, we have to set this as an item async. So we have to set the token that we have generated for the client. We have to set it or store it into the local storage. Now, when it is getting the authentication state async, it's going to grab that token. Then it's going to check, does it correspond to what it has? If yes, it means it is correct. Then you can now set it as a bearer token and put it or pass it onto the header request. So when a request is being made, you're going to see this token as header, as we saw earlier on. So the type, the authentication type here is known as the bearer, and we pass in the token being gotten from the local storage. As I speak, we haven't stored the local storage token. We do that when we create the service. So here we get it from the local storage. We check if it is null or empty. We're going to return new as anonymous. It means we don't know the person, we don't have any information about that person. If not, then you're going to set it to the header. The type is bearer, and you're going to add a token as well. Then we're going to return authentication state, then claims principal and identity. Then we're going to check the string. You could say with the token that is coming in, if we check our own, let's see, now the one that is coming in here has, let me set it again, so admin at 1 2 3. Now you can see the token that is coming in has 3 sections. Okay, so watch here. This is the first one, it goes up to this. This is the second one, from this dot up to the last one. And you see we have 3 sections here. So this is going to check these 3 sections and now grab the claims and any other method in it that can enable the user to be authenticated or authorized. So this method, you have to create this method. That's the pass claims from JWT. The type here is JWT. The auth type is what? Bearer. That is the token that we have gotten from the local storage of the client browser. Now the local storage, the name of that storage name is auth token. That's authorization or authentication token. Let's add this method. So we can add that method over here. But before that, before we add that method, we have to also check. Now this mark user as authenticated. So is the user authenticated? If yes, then we're going to store the authenticated user with the claims principal. Then we call for new identity. You set it to the name and to the email. So the name, the claims type dot name, we're going to use the person's email. So that's what we can actually use to welcome the person. Welcome, hello, then you pass in the name as identity dot name. And now when you call in identity dot name here, you're going to have the email in place of the name, because we are storing what? The email as name. Now we get an authentication state types from results, okay, from this authenticated user. That's what we stored over here. Then we notified authentication state change. So this is going to update the whole application or the section, either the person is being authenticated or not, or logout. So this is going to update that. It's an event that's going to raise and update the form as well. Okay, so once you have that, let's see the next thing that we can do. Mark user as logout. So that is when the user logs out. Click on the logout button. What do you want to do? We don't want to leave the check here. So when you log out, first of all, we set it as anonymous. Claims identity, we set it to null. So since we get the claims identity as empty, we're going to have as anonymous. So we don't know you. Now the auth state, we pass in this anonymous. So it means you're not going to be authenticated. You're going to see the name, the email, nothing. Notify the application that you are gone, you are out. Now when you are out, this is what we can actually use to specify let me copy this well before I made any mistake in it. Okay, so let me copy this and in here. Do I have any? Okay, so now the next thing that we're doing here is, now with this here is, that's a pass claim from JWT. Now this pass claim here is going to split the token as indicated on with the dot, pick the first one here, then check the payload, try to get the claims out of it, the rows. Okay, so you're going to get the rows out of this. If rows is equal to null, then it's going to start this one. But if it's not equal to null, then we're going to add the row to the claims. Then we have the row or that being removed over here, and you can see it is adding a range to the claim that we've just gotten from. Let me take this off. From this, okay, from the rows that it is getting this from. Okay, so now aside from that, it is getting pass base64 without padding, and it is checking the equal sign. Now all tokens, either they have 2 equal signs or 1 equal sign, so this method is checking up to see which one corresponds with. So when you check this application, currently this token doesn't have 1 or 2. So when you create a new one, you must have one, either 1 equal sign or 2 equal sign. And if in case it has 1, then it's going to add these 2 equal signs. In case this one is modulo 4, isn't it? Then you're going to add 1. So either 2 or 1. Okay, so this method is actually going to work in that way to get the everything intact for us to have application work. So this method is actually was done by, I actually forgotten the name actually, but one guy, good guy, did that, and it's very useful as well. Okay, so this to pass claims from JWT is actually everywhere. You can just grab it on the internet and paste them here. Okay, so we have that done, and that is it for the authentication state provider. Now the next thing that we can actually do here after creating a custom authentication state provider is we have to now create our service. Now this service is what we're going to use to render to the client. Okay, so yeah, so I think I've remembered the one who did this. So from this pass claims from JWT and this pass base64 without padding, it's a borrowed one, a borrowed method from Steve Sanderson. So he came out with this. So actually he is the only one who can vividly explain this to you. Okay, so what we know here is it checks and get out rows and claims, or claims from a token, and that claims what you can use to be authorized or be authenticated to the application. That's all that we can actually say. But maybe if you actually want to know what actually it does line by line, then Steve Sanderson can actually help you a lot to understand, because he did it and he knows better than what we know. Okay, so once you have this done, now our next thing that we can actually do here is we have to create our services, and that's what you're going to use to render to the user. So this, let's create a folder in this client project, and that's going to be the last one to do. So add an our new folder, and we name it at services. Since it is only one, you can name it at service. Now with this service, let's create an interface and implementation. So a new item, and the name of this, let's see what we can actually do to this. So we can say it is iService. That's an iAuth service. That's an interface. So make sure you select an interface. Click on add. And now with this interface, you want to have these methods. these 3 simple methods in it. So tags, this is a register. Now remember that we created this register result. We use that in the controller, and you can see we are using it over here as well. So that's why we put them in the shared project. Login result, register model, and the login model, and we have logout. Let's create an implementation for this. So we can just copy this auth service only, copy this, and let's go to service, right click, add new class, and now the auth service, click on add. Now with this auth service, this is what we need to do first. Let's create a constructor and inject our HTTP client and other methods. So this has to inherit from, so I auth service. Okay, now let's create a constructor here and inject this. So we are injecting the authentication state provider and the local storage, and also the HTTP client. We initialize them over here. Okay, so the next thing that we can actually do here is, let's see. Now that is a register. So when the user calls in for register, we are going to use the post as JSON async. We pass the API. The name of the registration controller is called account. We pass in this register model. If result is not succeeded, we return successful is equal to false and error occurred. But if it is successfully done, we can just successful is equal to true and account created successfully. That's very simple. Now the next thing that we want to do here is when the user tries to log in. So when the user tries to log in, what should happen? And that's what we have it over here. So the next method. Now when this kind of login model is coming in, it's going to return login results. Then first we serialize it, we convert it to JSON. After serializing, we send it all as a post async to the login mode controller. Then we specify the type since it is serialized as application / or JSON. Then the next thing that we do again here is, let me bring this here, the next line. Now we create a variable as login result, and we deserialize the results over here and read the content from what is coming in. So this, and we set the case insensitive to true. If response is not equal to success, that is success status code, return results, login results. Okay, so if it's not successfully done, but in case it is done, we have everything correctly done and the user is found in the user manager, it has been authenticated with the right password, then we set, so what here, we set local storage to what? Auth token. That's the token that it is coming in. Okay, so here we are setting, and in the authentication provider we get it over there. So here is going to set it first before we can get it over there first as well. Once we are done, then we return the state provider with the username over here, that is user email as a name. Then we pass it as a header until request. The type is going to be a bearer, and we set the token over there. We return the login result. Remember that the login result is coming in with what? Success code, error, and token. So as soon as we pass in login result.token, we are having the token that we issued when we logged in first. Okay, now we are almost done. The last part that we need to talk about here is by creating our component. Okay, so let's create our component, and our component that we want to create here, we want to create login.razor. We need razor.razor and logout.razor. So these are the components that we want to create. So this is the login, and let's copy this. Let's create a component over there. So in our pages, right click on pages and add razor component. The name is going to be login. So login.razor. Now let's copy this, and actually this code I'll leave it because this is just a form, a design form. Okay, so I'll leave this code. You can actually have access to this code. So here, that is a route, and we need to inject this. So control plus period. Let's inject this auth service. So we have it over here, and I will inject the navigation manager as well. Now we have edit form. Let's see, this requesting us to use edit. Okay, so now you can see we have edit form here. Okay, now this edit form, we have validation, annotation, validation summary. We have email address, that is a login. So let's control period. So let's use that. That is a shared project. And now we create an object out of this login model. Now this login model contains email and password. We specify that here. Then when this login model, when this button is clicked, you can see this button is submit. Now you see on valid submit, you want to handle login. So under this method here, handle login, we show error equal to false, no error. Now we store the result. We await auth service dot login, passing this login model. Okay. Now when it's done, when the result is got successful, then we want to navigate this person to the home. Else we display the error and we show error to true. Simple as that. Okay. Now let's try to save this. Let's navigate to our page and see what we have now. So let's try to access login. So there's nothing found here. Login, so nothing found. Let's see again. Alright, so this is what you can do. We're going to now copy this and cut this. Let's close this. Now let's delete this and recreate it again. Maybe you can now. So login, yeah, delete it. Now let's recreate it again and see. So add razor component, and that is login.razor. Control, let's paste them here. Let's see if we have save this. Okay, so let's save this and let's see. Okay, so we have the same as well indicated. So after saving this, let's run this and see. Okay, so we have error. Where from this error? Let's restart this error. Auth service does not implement interface. This logout. Okay, so let's see. Alright, so we have one method left. That is a logout. So when the user logs out, what should happen? Let's finish that quick. Auth service. When the user tries to log out, then you want to set the local storage value to what? To now. So as you can see from here, look, we want to remove the item name as auth token in the local storage. Then that's the default request header. Instead of setting it to the token over here, we set it to now because we want to remove the token from the request header because the user is now logged out. Okay, so let's save that and on application and see what we have now. Okay, so now we have this. We need to also create a registration as well. So let's see if you can create a registration component. Let's see, so you have login. Alright, so let's check here. Let's copy this and let's see with the App.razor. Let's paste this here. That's for the App.razor. So you want to check with the cascading authentication state, and we can use this method to check the identity and if it is cascaded, if it is authenticated or not. So let's see over here. That's the method that we call over here, and we check. So we are going to write this to the console, that is to out, okay, to check. So if the user is authenticated, we then say user is authenticated. If it is not, user is not authenticated. That is the simple method that we are just using to do, and that's the cascading parameter. Okay, so we save that. Now if we decide to refresh this, now we have an error here. Now with this error, right click and go to inspect element. Now with this inspect element, let's see what we have. Console. Okay, and like you see, we are saying that there is no registered service for the type. Yeah, we understand that we haven't registered the type yet. So we do that. So the next thing that we can do here is let's create a register. So we have our login over here, and now with our register to we have it over here. Yes, let's register this. So register.razor, let's create that. So right click on the pages, add new razor component, and the name here is register.razor, and this register.razor, let's copy this and we can now paste them here. So it's the same thing that you're also doing. So let's Ctrl+, let's inject this as well as the I7. Now we have all these and we have these errors here. Ctrl+. Now what is the error here? We have to specify Ctrl+. Let's include this shared project, and now you see this working. So this is done. Okay, so with the login, I length here. Okay, so login 2, it is done now. Alright, so no error here. Now the last thing that we have to also do, so with the register, we just have to call the same thing as we did for the login. We call this result and register. We just change this method as register. That's very simple. And we create an object out of this register model. We set this register model dot password and confirm password and email. We have this when it is by submit, handle registration, data validation here to handle the errors. Simple as that. Okay, now let's see what we can actually do after having this registration. We need to create now we have the login already. So let's see when you have the login, the next thing we can do here is you have to create a logout component. So with the logout component, let's go in there, right click, and now add razor component. Now there's going to be a logout. So logout.razor. Now in here we have logout. Copy this and in paste it. Now the root is logout, that's the direction, the routes, and let's inject this I service, and we are calling a logout over here, and we navigate to the index. Okay, that's the home page. So when you log out, you go to the home page and record this logout. Now this logout is going to set or remove the access token from the local storage, and also set the claims type.name, which is the email, as now as anonymous. Save this, and yeah, we are almost done. What we have to do here is we can create a login display to display the either login or logout. Okay, so and that's going to be a login display. So let's create that so we can use that component. So add new component, and this component is going to be login display. Login display. Now with this component, that is what you want to do. So we want to just check the simple method. So now this authorize view, and this authorize the open and close. if it is authorized, we want to use context. That is when it is authorized. So hello, then context.user.identity, then pass in the name. Now identity here, that's going to be what? The person's email. Then we can display logout. If not, register and login. Okay, now let's see. So using this authorized view, so using this authorized view, and let's see what we have to authorization. Okay, so we have to use this. Now let's clear this off. Okay, so this is working. Now when you call for the context, it's calling for the current state. Okay, user from identity user, then we check the name. Now we save this. So the next thing to do here is we have to include this login display. We have to include it into the main.cs file. Okay, so let's see how to go about that. Now main layout. Let's go to Solution Explorer. Now shared projects. So shared projects. Alright, now main layout, and now on top here, let's display. So that's login. Let's see if it can login display. That is this one. Okay, let's save that. Now we are good. So let's save application, and now let's see what we have. So the next thing that we can do here is we have to register our services. So in order for this to work, we have to register our services. Until then, we are still going to have this reload error. So let's go to program.cs file. Whoa, we don't want to open. That's the Microsoft SQL Management Studio. Close that. No, cancel. Minimize that. Okay, so let's say with our program.cs file for the client, take note, we have to add builder.services.add Blazored local storage. That's the first one. We have to add builder.services.add authorization course. So that's the second one. Then we have to add this builder.services. Here we have to add scope. So add scope, and now this add scope, we need to provide an authentication service provider, and that is over here. Do you have it? Okay, so authentication service provider. And I remember that with this we created an auth, isn't it? So we created an API authentication state provider. So we have to create a dependency injection. So they is saying that anytime this interface is called, create an instance of this API. Sorry, this API, this class. Anytime this is called, create an instance, because this, it is depending on this for implementation, or this will depend on this. Because when you call a method in this, its root explanation can be called from this API. So this method, so when you create an instance of this, when a method in this is called, you can now get into this instance method and now get it and utilize that. Okay, so that's what dependency is about. Now we have to add one more. So builder.services.add scope. Now with this add scope, that's a auth service. Then the name here is what? Auth service. That's authentication service, and that's the last one. So we have done this. Now let's wait for application to get refreshed and see what we're going to have now. Okay, so now it's now reloading. Let's wait and see if we're going to have this error, or it's going to be cleared off. Now that error is gone. Good. So we see when the page loads, we have register and login. Now login over here, please enter your details. Now this email, now remember that we have registered account already. Okay, so that's the @user or etc. So let's go in there and let's try to grab this. So email.com. Now the password is admin@123. Before we click on submit, let's click on inspect, and now network, no, application, local storage. So now you can see with local storage, nothing is here. Let's click on submit and see what happens here. So we wait once we have a message on top, or we're going to redirect us to the home page. Now you can see welcome. Now you can see we have hello, username, then we have logout and about us. Now click on them. Now you can see we have auth token. So this is a token generated now. Okay, this is a token that ends with 9u. Now this 9u, let's want to access a method here. So click on network and now fetch data. That is the controller. Now you can see we have authorization, that's the bearer, and ends with 9u. Then we have the cookie as well. Alright, now you can see it is working now. Now if I decide to click on logout, see what happens here. Now this is going to go off, and this is also going to go off. So let's see. Now the first one, network, let's see if this authorization bearer is going to take off. Now let's see over here. So you can see this over here, isn't it? Let's go to application. Now you can see that is off. Let's go back to network. Now if we try to get data again, or let's see, if we try to refresh this application, see what happens here. Fetch data, controller. Now you can see the authorization is gone, left with the cookies only. Alright, okay, so this video has taken a little bit long, but it's actually important to understand the concept and to know it. Don't worry, all the codes that I use, I'll just leave them a link from the GitHub and another description. You can just click on that to grab all the code. Maybe you want to check yours and see what you have, what you got an errors, or you just fix one or two things in it. And the sponsor, I'm going to leave it out over there. It's going to be available as well. So thank you so much for being with me with this long time, and I believe this is helpful to you. And hopefully I'm going to catch up the next video, but please don't forget to subscribe as well, share, and give me a thumbs up in case you like what I'm doing. Okay, thank you for watching. See you in the next video. So in the next video, do you know what we're going to talk about? That is, we're going to specify if this button can be accessed by administrator or user. That is a role base. So don't forget, for the next one, make sure you subscribe as well, so you can get that video as well and read and watch it as well and practice, so you can enable that in your application to have a complete app.